Kathy Vick, deeply awake. I'm back. It's funny. I have an ongoing relationship with my work, and sometimes I stand in such opposition to it, such like revulsion. I can't even go. I can't even look at a video. There's something that just blocks me from it, and all I can do is badmouth it. And sometimes I can break that with reading something, but not always. Well, alrighty. Anymore, I just look at it and go, oh, I'm in one of those phases. I'm standing apart from myself, not integrated. Oh, okay. I'm um I'm not, but that's just how I would be. And that's been going on since the very beginning. And it's really kind of surprising to not feel it anymore. Whenever it comes over me that I feel true appreciation, I always kind of felt it was going to be short lived and I was going to be flung into the abyss of not understanding something and feeling about 2 years old again. That was pretty much the experience. You get toe hauled, you begin to figure out, the rules have changed, but they're still understandable. And then another wave would hit. It was just, wow, that was an ongoing thing from, I don't know, 2011 forward. But it really picked up speed in 2012 for me. And it's not, I would have to remind myself this is not sustainable long term. This is a nice way to get there. It's very pleasant and it's self-directed, but it's time limited. There's a purpose behind it, because I've said before, this is a huge pain in my ass if things don't get better. Why would I be doing this? Because I hear the stories of people who have ventured out and said, hey, I'm Andromedon, or I'm Andromeda, or I'm from so and so, and or I channel so and so, or UFO researchers and stuff. Come on, you guys. Those who were alive know that even 20 years ago, there was ostracism. There was a turning away, and I talked about it, the turning away. And while there was a lot of this going on actively, under the hood, not really realizing exactly what was going to happen, but in 2012 and 2013, I talked about it. There's an energetic turning away, and it would just fill me with sadness when I would present myself and I could feel the energy turning away. Sometimes the people also turn away. Sometimes they just stay in place and keep looking at you, but they're already gone. And they will never admit it. And they get pissed at you if you point it out, but they're already gone because they're deep in judgment and they can't hang with it. So now I've been saying, expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. I was told that's what the universe is. It's expansion and contraction. It breathes. And so there's enlightenment and there's quieting down, and there's, and I would think, well, these expansions are happening more and more frequently because I was having full on light events with physical manifestations. After one of them, all of the power in the casino went down all at once. No lights, no machines, everything just went down. And in my ear, I heard them say, oops. And they were laughing. They said, oops, we just kind of, oops. That was a little too much, I guess. Oopsie. And, it's kind of like what I think about what happens with spontaneous combustion now and then. You're just not entirely prepared. And poof, off you go. Oopsie, burned it. Oh well, let's try again. So, that's not some entity saying, oh, let's burn them. That's you just not knowing how to work the equipment quite yet. So that's kind of how I've been looking at it in my heart of hearts. Well, certainly there'll come a time when if I keep having these events and they keep happening and happening and happening and happening and happening, soon enough that's going to be reality, and this other stuff isn't going to be relevant. That's how it was at the very beginning. It was inky blackness of depression and futility. And I used to talk about the futility of soup. Decades of feeding gallons of soup to people crippled, unable to feed themselves. Spoonful by spoonful. For a lifetime. To what end? Oh, the futility of soup. That's where I would go. Think I was tired? I think so. I think I was a little tired. So, I'm going to tell you about my son's birth. Because it effectively broke a pattern of futility. It broke the domain, the dominion that was fear. It reintroduced joy into my reality completely at the time, ambivalently and almost unwillingly, until the very last moment. I was absolutely unwilling to have an organism growing in my body. Are you kidding me? That's nasty. And what you have to do, and what society requires women especially to do? I think not. No. And then it happened. And, there's a series of skirmishes that led to it. But that's fine. That's fine. So last night, my son and I were I told you I was going to tell you the story, so here we go. Last night, my son was talking about lots of things, and he told me about his birth. And then he giggled. Like, I'm really glad I got to finally tell you. Isn't it neat? And he said I could tell you, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to set the stage. It was 1999. And it came to pass that after much, I finally consented to birthing a child. Okay. Yeah, guess that's the setup. Can't seem to get out. I signed up for it, looks like. Okay. All right. I'll do it. I'm open. And I hadn't intended it at all before, and I thought I was sterile, so that was kind of like, yeah, whatever, dude. Sure. No, that wasn't the case. I just hadn't set my intention. I hadn't given permission. But then I did. And the night of conception, I knew something. I knew I was being visited. I knew it was a male soul, and I knew that someone who was going to be male, and so loving, so loving. Oh my God! So I said, yeah, that's good. I'm glad I'm pregnant now. And then I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months later, I noticed things in my body that are not normal for me, and or extended periods of, it just, I shouldn't be feeling this way for this long. Oh. So I took a pregnancy test, and sure enough. Okay, cool. And during this time, my mom decided to pass. So she had been ill for about, I don't know, 4.5 years. With her heart had been blown out. She had a very floppy left ventricle. So she had equipment that zapped it every now and then, and she soldiered on. And then the end came. And it just happened to be when Sam was about to show up. So, anyhow, She was actively dying, and I was on bed rest because I was pre-eclamptic and 8 months pregnant and in bad shape. And she died, and there was a service, and from the service I was driven to the hospital for induction. Oh my. Oh my, that's a little heavy. And I got induced, and it didn't go so good, and it didn't progress, and I was in labor for over 24 hours, and I contracted beta strep, so I ran a temp. In the end, I spiked at 105. The night after I was admitted. So you can imagine the kind of shape that baby was in, and I was in. And I did. I took a nurse aside. I told Jerry to start writing down names, times, events, because I was going to die, and he needed a record. And then I turned to a nurse and said, I am not kidding you. This body is dying. You need to get someone to help me now. And she did. And at 11:55, my son was born into a silent delivery room. I didn't get to hear the wah, wah. It was tense, and it was quiet, like a church. You can check. You can go online. His APGARs were 1, 1, and 5. He shouldn't be what he is right now. He was dead, basically, for a long time. For a long time. I mean, it was dicey. And I finally said, is my baby alive? Tell me if my baby's alive. And then some time passed, and they said, would you like to see your baby? I said, yeah. He's alive, they said. You want to see your baby? I wrapped him up. And I was laying down, and they were sewing me up, so they came around this side. It was right above me, my right side. And this beautiful little face, oh my goodness, so teeny. And then that face, those eyes, opened up and stared right at me and held my stare, and looked into my soul. It's the bar none the spookiest thing that's ever happened to me. And then his eyes gently closed. He spent time in the NICU, and I had him tested. We were afraid he was blind. He wouldn't open his eyes. So, that was the story. And I always felt kind of bad about the train wreck that his birth was. It's like, yeah, I pushed for her. Like, I didn't even have to push. You just presented yourself. It was just so special and lovely. No, it was like that. It was like, as everything in my life, high drama and high, like life and death shit. All right, fine. I realized that had my mom been alive, she couldn't have been half as effective as she was in that state. So freshly dead. She was all over that. She moved things. She helped me. She helped me other times too when I needed help. She was there to move things. She's who moves me. She moves things to help me. So it was nice. It was okay. And I had that awareness right during the time. So it was like, oh, okay, well, it sucks, but all right. I guess I'm going to learn how to do this from somebody else, which probably isn't a bad thing. Not that she was bad at it, but, another flavor would be probably good to add to the mix in child rearing at this point. So, she died the 19th. He was born the 25th. Kind of important dates. Kind of important numbers to me. Anyway. Sam knows that story. I told him that story. And it's only now that he revealed to me the punchline. We were talking about our lives and our meanings and our purposes and things like that. And he said, "Mom," he explained that he came in after the body had been born. Tell me more about that? He said the person who had the intention to be born was too tired. He was going to go. It was too much. He didn't want to do it. It was not right for him. And he stepped in. Sam stepped in and took over. And I could tell him, I could ask more, whether it's a soul sharing thing or if it's a walk-in thing. But I think really those are distinctions that we as human beings need to make to put some structure onto something that seems out of control, to control something uncontrollable, to understand something not understandable to our mind. So what I like is that it's it really does make a lot of sense. It explained so much about how I felt. The weariness and the resignation that I felt while I was pregnant. And sure, there are a lot of reasons for that, but just the realization of the slog. And I was beginning to really feel ground down and really not excited about this next part. And I really, with new life, you'd think I'd be excited. Explains that. And allows me to let it go, too. Because that perhaps wasn't entirely my flavor of ice cream. But it was just a flavor that I was engaging in for a while. Sam said that he heard a call. He heard that there was someone in distress who did not want to enliven the flesh and did not want to enliven the infant. And he was willing. Sam was willing. So he came. And this is when he smiled and giggled. He said, "Mom, that's why I looked into your eyes." It just made so much sense. Because he looked into my eyes, and the only thing that I could say, I said it twice, right into his soul as he was looking at my soul. "Thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up." Getting in touch with joy was really a fundamental part of this coming together process, because the joy had fled. It was obligation and responsibility and never measuring up. And just being caught on the wheel and with no release in sight. And really getting to the place where I was making peace with that. That's what this was all about, was to elevate my time on the wheel. And Sam added a brand new dimension to that. But I have, throughout his life, carried a weird sort of maternal guilt, because I remember when he was an infant, still taking a bottle, and I would spend time with him just rocking and rocking. It's like I couldn't wrap my mind around what I was holding. I didn't know how I could possibly be responsible for this. I felt so outstripped and scared. Not that I was going to break it or mess it up. No. but now I understand who I was holding and why I felt so overwhelmed. So I share that with you because I think it's important to exercise one's consciousness a bit, to imagine things are possible that you never thought possible before. And sometimes the best way of doing that is by hearing someone's highly credible and very physical story of something that is an example of something that's far removed from your own reality, but maybe you read about in a book about soul sharing, walk-ins, soul multiplicity, soul groups. Because Sam said, he didn't know me, but he knew of me, and he said he had attended some of my parties because I have a place and it's on Sun. And he said I was probably much younger then because I was very adventurous and like, yeah, let's go do that. Just like a wild person, a wild woman, full of fire and passion. And so he said the birth was sort of like realizing that you're encountering someone who you used to sit behind in school. Whoa, okay. That explains this weird kinship and this weird disconnection, this weird, it explains it. And these are feelings that I have at such a biologic level. And there are many things that happen energetically and spiritually that we're silenced in expressing simply because it's not understood by anyone around you. And so just quite naturally you're found without words. Well, there's a reason for that. It was really, really sacred and it's really, really beautiful, but it's not going to be understood. Well, fancy that. I can't even find the words right now. What was I talking about? Funny how that works. That's why these tapes are so cool, because if you want high esoterics, high applied physics, applied high physics, hardcore esoterica, well, this would be a good place to go. But, up until now it's just been in bits and pieces. I mentioned the birth story because I think that it is helpful to always be open to the truth, that there's a lot going on that you don't know. And it's far more beautiful than you could imagine. Far more loving. Far more loving than you are. Oh, does that hurt? Well, okay. Then that means you're not very loving yet. And you know it. Part of you knows it. Part of you knows you've got obstacles. And you resonate with that when it's said. Well, Sam and I do talk about amnesia a lot, and don't fault yourself for having amnesia. He's really not pleased with prophetic work, and I only am telling you prophecies that I knew of. I don't do a lot unless it's with a celestial trigger. I don't talk about future events or I try not to, because it's Sam always says the future is so good, and I'm not going to do anything to mess it up. And there are ways that you can mess it up, and one of them is to point something out and talk about it, and get people to know about it. Once somebody else knows about it, it's no longer a pure creation. It's a shared creation, and dependent somewhat on their energy. This is just too much information and too much light to be altered significantly at its base. But I think really what's been going on is a breaking apart of the lesser or the less structurally sound thought constructs and belief structures. That makes sense. Okay. Well, it's very scientifical, isn't it? It's a weird way to look at someone's own consciousness, isn't it? Well, I'm certain that there's some in the world who would consider this a fine form of mental masturbation. And I think that studying, you know, ancient Egypt, that is, in essence, the height of mental masturbation. That is walking into a box canyon and getting off on it and staying there. It's one flavor, and it's a quite limiting flavor. It is supposed to be, I think, that is supposed to stand as a library of my friend Diane and I have talked about Egypt, and I very, very much remember shutting that project down. And when I look at the Sphinx, all I feel is a species sadness. And I think that Sphinx was put there later, the pyramids formed, but that was like saying goodbye and saying remember, remember, remember. And that's when the work began. I think that's that the event was foreseen, and that work was done to ensure that there would be an outcome that was full of light. So I think that, because this is a free will planet, it isn't a hologram. It isn't a fixed thing. It is an act of creation. And so that sense of being in a hall of mirrors, or being in something that goes on forever and never really changes or grows or moves off the dime, that's just lower energy. Expecting the unexpected is part of, I think, creativity, unlimitedness. So I've been thinking a lot about the spiral and the line, male and female. And this whole thing of, all physical systems are binary. No, actually, no. What memo did you get that I didn't? This physical system appears to be binary. And people then think, well, computers are binary. So this is a computer. Ipso facto. It's a hologram. No, it's binary code. It's a coded reality. It's mathematical reality. But it's not a foretold reality. It is imbued with the breath of Hui. That's pretty much what I think creator is just Hui. What does this do? Let's poke it with a stick. Oh, gotta make a stick. Gotta make an it. Gotta get to work. Let's have some fun. So, is that the circle or the line? Is that the thought or the expression? Is that the void or the experience? So, there are some limits to consciousness, right? But I don't think that only binary systems create life. I think there's probably systems out there that are tertiary and lots of different things. Geometries we can't even think of because we can't even think of them. So I have never heard a female scientist say, well, dismissively, well, that doesn't exist. I see men take that prerogative a lot. Oh, well, you just very dismissively, oh, it's only binary systems create physical reality. Oh, really? Really? Who made you the expert? Lordy, that presumes a lot. You want me to call you God now or later? God, the arrogance of the human mind boggles me at times. When, reality is just bursting with the truth, all you have to do is just contemplate things and it becomes quite clear. A lot of stuff becomes quite clear. And I encourage you to look at Enrique Boron's work and how he his work must acknowledge the biological reality of this and how creatures act and how biology behaves. It's its own little kingdom. It's its own expression. And it's beautiful. And so I'm talking about this biological event of procreation, which I've never felt more wizardly. I've never in my life felt more power and more sovereignty than when I was pregnant. And I realized down in my soul, I am ungovernable. Don't even try. Look what I can do. Back off. And that's when it began. Just this realization that, innately, I have so much more creative knowledge and power than anyone ever told me. I would love to do a whole thing about the myth of woman. I would love to lay it out, what it is we're expected to believe about ourselves and about male. I think it would be pretty unbelievable because I don't think women really talk a lot about what it's like. Not really. And it is, it's about as unpleasant as it is being a male, I think, and a lot less, in the end, a lot less limiting. Just that there are males who do not carry it. My son is one. He's biologically male, but he doesn't carry the same attribute. He's fused it somehow. He's both a circle and a line. He's made the jump, but that's the thing with I really know that this sounds very like nerdy and esoteric and unreachable, but there's a fusing that occurs in the physics of it, the consciousness of it, the DNA. It has to be where there's balance and there's a chord. If you have a vortex, you have a point of light, and it's on a spiral. It's going to keep going, going to keep going, going to keep going. Well, where it ends up isn't where it began, but there's only certain places it can go, unless it encounters a line, unless it encounters something that molds it, shapes it, moves it. But there's balance and a precision that's required for this to work with the benefit to each. Because together, a circle and a line can go anywhere. But a circle alone can only go in one direction, and a line can only go in one direction. Together, they create something brand new. And I know that may seem pretty simple, but I think that will be proved out in terms of genetics and in pyramids and in a lot of different power sources. It has to do with torsion fields. It has to do with the polarities and things like that. Why don't you use the physics that are provided to your benefit instead of killing each other with them? What a great concept. But it means thinking about an electron as a friend. And imagine that. Women. Me in Denver and my friend Melissa in the away from me. Um, we've sit and cracked many high physics koans together. She knowing much more about electromagnetic energy, and me knowing more about, I don't know what I know about. I don't know. And it's valid. The funny thing is that what we create together and what we come up with separately bears out in the scientific discoveries being made. Yeah, funny. But what I was told and what's been channeled to us is that the women, because of the biology hold, they have access to this information in a way that is not accessible to males at this particular maturity level. And it is up to the females to, with discernment, engage with males who are less stuck in the consciousness. And but they have to prove their ability to carry the information to the female, because this information will not be it can't be corrupted, and so only integrity and quality and certain vibrations are going to be able to attach to it. That's why I never feel too bad about these videos in the end. If I don't have a very big readership, oh well. I think about that from time to time. Holy crap, here I am lifting the lid off of these things, ripping off the band-aids sometimes, and just having a blast talking about really, really wild stuff, and no one's watching. I sometimes can't believe, after some of the stuff that I've produced through the years, that I didn't break the internet somehow, because I just broke reality. Why aren't my numbers spiking? And oftentimes it'll take a day or two, but it catches up. It always does. It's like a depth charge. Sometimes it takes a while. But long ago, I've known that this is in full concert with human consciousness. I'm a human. I have a right to go to these places and make these connections and to say these words out loud. And I'm not doing anything evil or wrong or naughty. But I am pushing the envelope. I do ride the tip of the spear. And so, all right, if you're along for the ride, I think you should consider yourself one of the mighty. A mighty, mighty one. Ground floor, baby. Because it's only now it's becoming so abundantly clear what I am, what I did, and what I represent. Oh my. Oh my. And sometimes I think I can't watch it because I can't accept it. I'm in a place of just really not liking myself, not respecting myself, or being ground down, or being in futility. All right, it's a different consciousness, that's for sure. Hello, sunshine. She's in heat again. So, what can you do? We just let her go weird for about 5 days. Oh my God, she does the enterby dance. It's just so silly. It's so much fun. So that's like 5 days of them not really knowing how to take each other, because there's a neutered male and a very female kitty cat around here when she's in heat. Anyway, I guess I'm talking about sexuality. I mean, that's what it always comes down to. Nobody wants to talk about it. Because they're ashamed of themselves and what they've done. For good reason. For good reason. And there ain't no excuse for some of the shit that's gone down. But, you know, once people stop saying ow, ow, ow quite so much, maybe it'll get better. Who knows? So that's the story of my son's birth. And it was it all made perfect sense. I hope that through telling that tale, I was able to convey the breathless nature of that delivery room. My ex-husband has a red beard, and the next day, when he came back from sleep and got back to the hospital, it wasn't red anymore. It had a white streak right there. It's never gone away. And it was proven to me, that shocks can do that. And it was a shock. So I'm glad for my shocking son. And much more comfortable with his energy now. And because some of the questions I had that I ascribed to my not being a good mom or being loving or understanding or whatever, no, there were other reasons. Energetic ones. It had nothing to do with me or my worth or my capability as a parent. So that was good. So I listened to the old tape and the last tape, and I realize how off the grid I am as a parent. And I do want to say that treating my son with so much respect and allowing his will to be a very important part of our lives was very uncharacteristic in some ways, and I got a lot of heat for it. A lot of heat. But I couldn't do it any other way. My son wouldn't let me. He has no tolerance for certain things. He had to figure some things out, and so he agreed to. He inserts himself in systems that are sick to help them, and he needs to work on that. But I think he's gotten banged around enough to realize that maybe he doesn't need to do that quite so much. But I'm not here to teach him anything. That's the mistake. Your children are your elders. That's how it works. Through linear time, there is progression in consciousness. Now, maybe when we were devolving, well then, that's quite a sacrifice to make. And the elders lead the way. So I don't think that it's right to denigrate children, and I think it's good to do things your own way. But I kind of lived very guiltily having raised my kid the way that I did, because nobody else, I didn't hear many people, other people doing it, and they weren't encountering some of the things that I was encountering either. But there is also this idea that, well, if I don't talk about it, it's not happening. So I don't have to. It's a form of denial. I don't have to acknowledge that this person's weird experience is also something that kind of reminds me of what I'm going through. No, it's best for me to take pot shots at it, try and knock it down. So that's kind of that's just a creepy young intelligence doing that. Oh, I'm intimidated by somebody who knows more than me. I think I'll mess with them. It gets old. Yeah. Challenge all you want, but it gets old. I'm not sure if I'm going to post this or not. I'll tell you that they've always referred to Sam as the king. Cheekily, The king wants some food. You should stop doing this. We're done here. The king is calling you. Honestly. And there are just too many weirdnesses that have happened when I've been in high strangeness. And Sam has been there in such timing that it's just beyond dispute. We've told each other, we know that we're connected. And, it just, that's just that. That's just that. And to have that kind of biological grounding is really a gift. And I didn't have that until my 39th year. I wasn't biologically grounded here. I didn't have skin in the game, so to speak. I didn't want the karma. I just, I am not perpetuating any more craziness. If I can't promulgate a home of peace and love, and I can't create something that is abundant and fertile, I don't want any part of it. I gotta work on myself, and then maybe I'll get to a kid. And there it was, my 39th year. Well, ready or not, you've done enough work. It's time to go. And really what Sam did was to reintroduce joy into my life. Innocence. Play. And that saved me. It rescued me from a pit of despair. Simply playing dolls. Or knowing magic really is real. I needed that. Because life is joy. Anyone who requires you to pay with misery or heartache, or they just don't understand. And I want to end, and this is the high esoterics. I'm doing it at the end. It used to drive me mad, the reflectivity. How I could never really criticize anyone because I could immediately see that I was capable of the same thing. And if I wasn't able to see, it would come to my attention. And I felt foolish for having thought so highly of myself, when I too can be mean or petty or any, that kind of thing. Thoughtless or not cruel. Never cruel. But those other things. And it was enough of an issue that I went to the teachers with it, because it would fill me with such despair when I'd realized that I was capable of the same thing, and yet I found what was being done so toxic, and I didn't know what to do with that. And they'd say, yeah, well, you have a little bit of that in you, sure, otherwise you wouldn't feel it at all, but it's not everything that you are. And it's just not true. And it took me literally a lifetime to reconcile the darkness that was inside of me, my willingness to do harm and to enjoy harm being done to me. And it took me a lifetime of struggling with guilt and sin and all those concepts. So I don't minimize that quest. I think it's a very valid thing to question your soul and to get to become in harmony with that portion of yourself. But I began to realize that, that really is a problem, because if I encounter something that is malevolent or unpleasant or mean-spirited, I would like internalize it, and then I'd see how I am like that, and then it neutralized it, and I had to accept it. A whole lifetime. And I realize now that no, that's not actually true. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I've got the geometry. Every Merkaba has a triangle, right? But that's not what I am. And that, I think, might be the point of the whole exercise. Reflectivity was a big deal in, was it 16? It was the end of reflectivity. They kept saying that. And it was a way to neutralize the experience, and to anesthetize, I think, too. To engage in the experience and to personalize it. That's really personalizing stuff that's not mine. So I think it's very important to strip it down. And this is something that I offer you after a lifetime of searching. Am I good or am I bad? Am I really like that? Oh my God. Well, yeah, I guess I am. A little bit. Sure. But you can't really make a choice if you're compelled to action based on triggers, which I think is what a lot of the coding is. It's programming, biological programming that is conflict-based. And when the conflicts begin to dissolve, then the programming begins to dissolve. The codons begin to loosen, and DNA blossoms. Enrique Boron's work was instrumental in explaining this to me, that these genetic codes that you see under the microscope, and DNA, it's so fascinating. Well, they translate into something, into a physical body, but not just disease. Mind states and assumptions and preferred responses. And these are based on codes that are written in the stars. And that's why I think it's really ridiculous for anyone arrogant enough to say, "Oh, that doesn't help. That's dumb. Astrology's dumb." Or there's only binary systems, or whatever. Really? Oh, really? Who put you in charge of reality? I think it's really great to say doesn't work for you, and explain why. It's magical thinking and predestination and all that, and then you have a lively discussion. But otherwise, it's like, oh, that's bullshit. Well, super great. Now I'm holding the bullshit bag because I want to talk about it, and you've just decided it's crap. So, just different realities having a go at it. But yeah, this reflectivity of just, I obviously, if it's in my face, this must be me. Selfishness or pettiness or stupidity or whatever it is, mean-spiritedness, cruelty, whatever. No, it wasn't. No, it isn't. And it will never be me. It was just a story. It's part of a story. So, how magical. And we got some things to do today. I'm kind of excited, but this really is the work. I'm really glad to be in a place where I can produce something and feel good about it and feel proud and kind of scratch my head about the length of it, but I don't really care because it's very pleasurable and it's helping somebody somewhere. If no one else, it's helping me. So, hey. And, wow, I have access to the internet and I can post this. And, well, I think I'll do that. So, That's my free will at work, my intuition driving the show. And if I intersect with your free will today, well then, isn't that lovely? Have a good one.